this man proved that he can become the first Black American diver, introducing Carl, a young boy growing up in a serene, remote village with his family. His father, dedicated to his work as a corn farmer, spends his days toiling in the fields. Witnessing his father's relentless efforts, Carl is filled with compassion and eagerly volunteers to lend a hand. Initially hesitant, his father advises Carl to concentrate on his studies and enjoy his childhood. But Carl's determination to assist wins over his father, who eventually welcomes his son's help on the farm. Years later, Carl, now grown, receives news from his mother. It's time for him to join the United States Naval military training. At this pivotal moment, his father asks Carl to promise never to return to their village, hoping this will help him focus on building a successful future in the city, unburdened by concerns for his family. Upon reaching the military base, Carl faces a harsh reality. Due to racial prejudices, he is assigned only as a cook, as Black people were not allowed in military roles, still viewed as subordinate. Carl's confrontation with racial segregation intensifies when he learns of separate swimming schedules for Black and white people. In an act of defiance against this unjust distinction, Carl ventures into the swimming area designated for white people, only to be met with insults and expulsion orders from the ship's captain. Following a swimming defiance, Carl is confined but then assigned to the rescue swim team by the captain, impressed with his skills. After a helicopter crash, Chief Sunday saves a pilot who ultimately dies and later rescues a co-pilot and another diver, injuring his lungs in the process. His frustration leads to a commotion and a military trial, resulting in his demotion to a diving coach, witnessed by Carl and the naval forces. After his trial, Carl requests Captain Hanks to transfer him to diving training, inspired by Chief Sunday. The captain, recognizing his determination, approves the transfer. At the camp, Carl faces initial resistance due to his race and Chief Sunday's skepticism about his abilities. Carl steadfastly waits at the gate until evening, refusing to leave and determined to honor his father's promise. Eventually, Chief Sunday, impressed by Carl's resolve, admits him into the training camp. In the training camp, Carl is warmly received by Snow Hill, a student who ignores racial prejudices. Snow Hill helps Carl navigate the camp, led by ex-Marine Mr. Pappy, and shows him to his dorm, where other students exhibit hostility towards Carl. Everyone except Snow Hill leaves the dorm in protest of sharing with a Black person. Carl endures difficult treatment from Chief Sunday, who is unhappy about admitting a Black trainee, but remains resolute. The next day, Chief Sunday commences the demanding training, differentiating between swimming and diving, and puts Snow Hill's renowned swimming abilities to the test in diving. Carl's diving training intensifies, but he struggles with the academic part, receiving poor grades. Facing expulsion if his scores don't improve, Carl spends the semester break studying at the city library. There, he meets Joe, a nursing student, who initially hesitates to help him with the challenging naval material, but eventually agrees. With her help, Carl improves his grades. During a diving exercise, Chief Sunday assigns trainees Rourke and Ishar to weld a sunken ship. The task turns dangerous as the ship shifts, almost falling into a ravine and entangling Ishar's air hose. Hearing their distress, Carl volunteers for the rescue. Despite a brief moment of frustration caused by Rourke's panic, Carl remains focused on his mission to save Ishar, demonstrating his commitment and bravery under pressure. Following a successful rescue mission, Carl is overlooked for a naval award, which instead goes to Rourke, revealing racial biases. Despite this, his comrades begin to appreciate and befriend him. Carl receives the heartbreaking news of his father's death, who had hidden his illness to keep Carl focused on his goals. Seeking comfort, Carl invites Joe to accompany him. At a bar, Carl encounters Chief Sunday's wife, who shares her own sadness about her husband's choices. Chief Sunday, upon seeing Carl at the bar, publicly berates him. In an emotional outburst, Carl stands up to him, challenging the notion that he doesn't belong. Chief Sunday then proposes an underwater breath-holding contest. If Carl wins, Snow Hill is reinstated in the camp, but if Carl loses, he'll be expelled. Frustrated with the constant discrimination, Carl accepts the challenge, determined to prove himself. After winning a challenging match, Carl seeks out Joe, only to find she's leaving for a new job in the city. Carl, surprised, impulsively proposes to her, promising to visit after his training. Meanwhile, Mr. Pappy orders Chief Sunday to ensure Carl fails his next exam, reflecting a bias against Black trainees. Despite their dislike for Carl, Chief Sunday resents Mr. Pappy's manipulative tactics. When Carl insists on taking the exam, a heated argument ensues, leading Chief Sunday to accidentally break the radio gifted by Carl's father, leaving Carl heartbroken. On the day of the diving exam, Carl, full of confidence, defies Mr. Pappy's attempt to sabotage his test by tearing his equipment bag. Despite the setback, Carl perseveres underwater for hours, searching for the equipment. As the last participant remains training, Mr. Pappy insists on keeping Carl underwater to exhaust him. Chief Sunday, torn between following orders and his conscience, ultimately decides to rescue Carl. However, in a surprising turn, Carl surfaces on his own, successfully completing the exam.
Effective immediately! I am relieving you of your duties! Do you hear me, Chief?
At the graduation, Snow Hill informed Carl of his Navy diving reinstatement and Chief Sunday's dismissal for disobeying orders. Carl, silently packing, noticed his father's repaired radio, a gesture from Chief Sunday. Years later, Carl, now a senior Navy diver, married with a son, undertakes a crucial mission to recover a sunken nuclear bomb, a threat to an entire region. Initially doubted, Carl's successful mission is nationally broadcast, turning the once marginalized figure into a celebrated hero. The commander then directs the team to retrieve the bomb. Carl wakes up in a hospital, learning from Joe that an accident has left him unable to walk normally. Ashamed and dejected, he discovers his mentor, Chief Sunday, is in a mental hospital following a revoked diving license. In the hospital, Carl is visited by the commander, his assistant, and Captain Hanks. Despite his injury, Carl is determined to return to diving, inspired by a one-legged Air Force pilot story. He even requests his leg be amputated to not hinder his mission. Joe, overhearing this, argues against his risky ambition. Torn between a normal life and his dream, Carl chooses the latter. While adapting to life on one leg, Chief Sunday visits, empathizing with Carl's plight but vowing to help him return to diving. On the day of the conference to decide Carl's Navy future, Chief is initially barred from entering. Captain Hanks challenges Carl to walk 12 steps in a heavy 200 kg wetsuit to prove his capability. Despite Chief's plea for leniency, Carl is determined to show his resilience. With his family watching, Carl successfully takes the steps, earning applause and approval from the audience and officials, including Captain Hanks. This triumph leads to Carl's reinstatement as a Navy diver. Amidst the celebration, Chief, feeling his teaching role fulfilled, quietly leaves, acknowledging Carl's lesson in determination and dream chasing.
Diver, now you report to this line, Cookie. Hurry!
And that wraps up our journey today. Remember, each experience teaches us something valuable. Embrace your challenges, learn from your mistakes, and always strive for growth. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful stories. Until next time, reflect on the lessons learned and use them to shape a brighter future. Stay curious and keep learning.